it was an opportunity given, and I'm very grateful to the Honorable Prime Minister and also to my party for having that kind of a faith. And their guidance has really helped me to at least serve the party this much.
Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, you say guidance. Are there a lot of meetings between you and the finance minister? क्या जब बजट प्रेजेंट होता है तो एक विजन जो दिखानी होती है लोगों को, देश के लोगों को, और एक स्पेशली बिकॉज ये इलेक्शन ईयर का बजट कहा जा रहा था, तो इसमें कितनी इन्वॉल्वमेंट होती है प्रधानमंत्री की और अन्य सीनियर मिनिस्टर्स की?
प्रधानमंत्री जी का हर साल हर बजट के संदर्भ में बहुत इन्वॉल्वमेंट होती है, और फिनांस मिनिस्ट्री के द्वारा जितने भी प्लानिंग होते हैं और एक नक्शा रफ ड्राफ्ट बनाने के बाद पीएम जी के साथ एटलीस्ट 3-4 टाइम्स इंटरेक्शन, इंटेंसिव इंटरेक्शन होता है टू एक्सप्लेन एज टू व्हाट विल बी द इम्पैक्ट, उससे क्या असर पड़ेगा और उसका प्रभाव भारत के इकोनॉमी में क्या होगा। ये सब विषयों के ऊपर विस्तार से चर्चा गोष्ठी होती है।
प्रधानमंत्री से जब आप बातचीत करने गई कि ये इलेक्शन के पहले शायद आखिरी फुल बजट होगा, अगले साल वोट ऑन अकाउंट होगा, तो उन्होंने कुछ ऐसा बताया जो उनके मन में था, जो वो मैसेज देश के लोगों को देना चाहते थे?
No, this was looked at as more budget which is also going to be primarily working to keep the growth momentum alive. क्योंकि when we are coming out of the pandemic and when growth is got to be sustained, and having sustained it in the last 2 years, this is a very delicate moment when if you loosen up and it comes down, it's going to have a big, in a sense, impact. Something which was going up nicely, because we were a bit careless or we were a bit relaxed, even though the challenges globally are still continuing, many countries are facing, reeling under it. So for India to have reached that position, it's not for want of right kind of approach. It's not because we gave emphasis in one and not another, but we kept looking at every sectors. So having given that kind of intensive review, care, response, this budget cannot be undermining that growth which we are so carefully building up. So Prime Minister's guidance was sustain the growth momentum. But of course, make sure that you are inclusive, making sure you're reaching out to communities which have not been touched and so on.
निर्मला जी, आपने 5 साल बजट प्रेजेंट किया है और हम ये आई थिंक पोस्ट बजट 5वां फ्रैंकली स्पीकिंग भी कर रहे हैं, ये भी कंसेक्यूटिव रहा है। मैं पूछना चाहती हूँ, इस बार बजट के बाद शायद बजट पर कम चर्चा हुई है और बाकी जो मार्केट में इस वक्त वॉलेटिलिटी दिख रही है, उतार चढ़ाव जो चल रहे हैं, शायद उसने ओवरशैडो किया है बजट को। जो अडानी स्टॉक्स के साथ हुआ है हिंडनबर्ग रिपोर्ट के बाद, बहुत से लोगों का कहना है कि ये कहीं ना कहीं कोई कॉन्स्पिरेसी है। आप इसे कैसे देखती हैं?
ये पहली बार नहीं है कि बजट के बाद कुछ और कारण की वजह से बजट के विषय चर्चा में इतना प्रमुख लेवल पर नहीं रहता, क्योंकि मुझे बिल्कुल याद है 2020 बजट जो 2020-21 वाला बजट जो 1 फरवरी 2020 को पेश किया, उसके तुरंत बाद तो कोविड आ गए और सभी डिस्कशन, इनफैक्ट हम रश करके पार्लियामेंट में अप्रोप्रिएशन वगैरह क्लियर करके पार्लियामेंट को बंद किया। सो वो पहली बार जब बजट के ऊपर चर्चा भी नहीं हुआ, पार्लियामेंट के अंदर भी बाहर भी। सेकेंड 2021 बजट विच वॉज फॉर 21-22, उस समय भी सेकेंड वेव Each one of the time there's some more there.
But those were not conspiracies. जो पहले की आप बता रहे हैं, चाहे वो वॉर हो, चाहे वो पैंडेमिक हो, फर्स्ट वेव, सेकेंड वेव, थर्ड वेव, वो कॉन्स्पिरेसीज नहीं थी. ये हिंडनबर्ग की जो रिपोर्ट है, एक सेक्शन मानता है कि ट्रांसपेरेंसी कम है और कांग्रेस पार्टी ने और तमाम ऑपोजिशन पार्टीज ने सवाल उठाए हैं कि अडानीज को स्पेशल डिस्पेंसेशन मिली है, और दूसरी तरफ एक सेक्शन कहता है कि ये कॉन्स्पिरेसी है. आप कॉन्स्पिरेसी समझती हैं या समझती हैं कि ये मार्केट की एक्टिविटी थी और किसी रिपोर्ट की वजह से अगर ये हुआ है तो वो एक स्टॉक पर हुआ है?
I don't want to have any view on it except that the regulators should act in time and act to keep the market stable, act to keep India regulatory functions at its best. So whether it is the Reserve Bank or it's the SEBI sitting in the finance ministry, my view would be that the regulators should be always on their toes, and that is where I would comment about what's got to be done.
पर अगर 6 दिन तक लिटरली कोई इस तरह का ना स्टेटमेंट आया, 12,500 करोड़ सिर्फ अडानी स्टॉक्स के इरोड हो गए, उसमें आम आदमी, आम छोटे इन्वेस्टर्स का पैसा भी है, उस पैसे के ऊपर अभी तक कोई स्टेटमेंट कहीं से आई नहीं है, ना रेगुलेटर से, ना आरबीआई से, ना फाइनेंस मिनिस्ट्री के फाइनेंशियल सर्विसेज जो डिपार्टमेंट है उससे. इसके बीच में आम इन्वेस्टर के मन में कहीं ना कहीं एक डर है, और ऑफ कोर्स ऑपोजिशन पार्टीज ने 2 दिनों पार्लियामेंट को लॉक जैम कर दिया है और उनका डिमांड जेपीसी का है, तो सवाल तो उठेंगे.
सवाल उठेंगे. आई एम नॉट ऑब्जेक्टिंग टू सवाल बीइंग रेस्ड. आई एम रिपीटेडली अंडरलाइनिंग द फैक्ट. आप आम इन्वेस्टर के ध्यान में रखते हुए प्रश्न पूछ रहे हैं. मैं रिपीटेडली इस बात को आई वॉन्ट टू अंडरलाइन that when it comes to Department of Financial Services जो आप रेफर किया है, बैंकों के एक्सपोजर के ऊपर, इंश्योरेंस कंपनीज के एक्सपोजर के ऊपर, they themselves are coming out and speaking, and coming out and speaking fairly covering every aspect of what is worrying the minds of people and about their exposure, and about how even after the valuation continue to fall, where their levels of profit is and so on, and that their exposure is this much. They are not overexposed to any one company. These are from the horse's mouth you're hearing it, from the bank, from the insurance sector. RBI as the regulator has come up with a very clear statement yesterday. And as it is, let me explain what the RBI has also said for a minute. RBI didn't go into this detail, but I'm just making sure that this is a message which senior journalists, a very important television channel, through your medium, I want to explain this. That on banks' exposure, then on bank dealing with clients almost on a everyday basis, in fact hourly basis, through the CRILIC data which the RBI is accessing. They know where what is happening and they keep an eye on it on an almost daily basis. So RBI has given a statement as well about the bank's health. As ministry, I will definitely draw your attention, Navika, to the health of India's banks now. Only yesterday probably State Bank of India came up with its quarterly report. Their health, their profit levels, the asset quality that they have are all explained by them. So that is about RBI, the banks, the insurance companies. where ministry is looking at both the RBI and the banks themselves and the insurance themselves to see how their levels of exposure is and what levels of profitability are they in. So that is all very well explained by themselves. Now SEBI too looks at these things almost regularly. So I think I am looking at the regulators who, as I said, India and its markets are very well managed by our regulators. Yes, there have been occasional, I don't know, for want of a better word, I'll use occasional blips in the market which may be small or big, but they do address issues like that. And I strongly believe that our regulators are definitely seized of this matter.
But do you think when it comes to investors with such huge volatility, there hasn't been a statement from SEBI? Now, are you saying there's nothing to worry and
No,
therefore there is no statement?
I'm saying that one of the regulators given a statement. I'm saying that regulators in India are well seized of such things almost on a daily basis. So it is very clear that they are watching or even commenting, like the way RBI did yesterday, on the developments in the market, and they will definitely explain things out, whichever way it is. I am not commenting on the merit of any issue here. Whichever way it is they would definitely speak about it, and RBI has spoken about it.
लेकिन ऑपोजिशन का कहना है कि सरकार भाग रही है इस पूरे इशू से। ऑपोजिशन के कई सवाल हैं, पार्लियामेंट सेशन में है और पार्लियामेंट में कहीं ना कहीं कोई डिस्कशन और सरकार की तरफ से कोई स्टेटमेंट होना चाहिए। ये
I don't want to undermine an opposition's role, and I'm not also dismissing what they say, but I want you to please hear me on this. सरकार भाग रही है। Every parliament session, who is the one who's stopping discussions from happening? And when discussions happen, I'm sorry to recall one of those real very hurtful moments on parliamentary history. People stood on the benches where the Secretary General sits and threw the rules book on the chair. All this happened by whom? Discussion you want, you have discussion. You can't disrupt and completely bring the House to a standstill, but also go out and say, government doesn't want to discuss. So, I want it to be a lot more credible explanation to say the government is भाग रहे हैं। कहाँ? सेशन तो चल रही है, सेशन चालू है। सेशन के टाइम हाउस में ना रहते हुए गांधी स्टैचू में चिल्लाने वाले, प्लकार्ड रखने वाले और बाहर जाकर के बोलने वाले और ऐसे गलत बयान भी देने वाले कौन है भैया? आओ चर्चा करो अंदर। ये इस बात के विषय में, इस विषय के संदर्भ में सिर्फ ना कह रही हूं, इससे पहले प्लीज निकालो रिकॉर्ड। हर विषय जो वेरी सीरियस विषय है उसके ऊपर चर्चा करने के आतंक का पैदा करने वाले कौन है? ऑपोजिशन। सो चर्चा से भाग रहे हैं, ये स्टॉक लाइन देने में फायदा नहीं है।
तो आप तैयार हैं?
मैं इससे पहले वाले सत्र का उदाहरण ले रही हूं। चाइना के ऊपर, बॉर्डर के ऊपर, लद्दाख के ऊपर चर्चा करो। भैया इसके ऊपर कितनी बयान हमने दिया कि रक्षा मंत्री जी आएंगे, जवाब देंगे, स्टेटमेंट देंगे, जयशंकर जी स्टेटमेंट देंगे ना। And I, for once, I normally don't get up on other subjects and speak because every minister fully can address it. But that day, I had to get up to say, I remember Shri Kiran Rijiju, who's now the law minister, telling me that Pranab Mukherjee ji I know he's not alive, but still I'm referring to him with due respect, had told him not to raise during UPA time the issue of China in the Arunachal border. Called him to his room and said, please don't raise it. He abided by it. The next time, a different instance, when he started raising again he had called him and said, please don't raise it, we'll address it, we'll tell you all the things about it, saying it's sensitive. But when our government says, don't discuss Ladakh, don't discuss that, we will inform you. They say, oh, no, the government is not allowing an important matter, discussion, and go out and give such fundamentally wrong data. Itni kilometers, square kilometers being occupied by... Where does he get all this information from? But he wouldn't speak in the parliament. He wouldn't allow the discussion on in the house on other things. But on this, they'll go on saying, government didn't have a charcha. Raksha Mantri speaks. So, completely one thing inside and one thing outside.
मुद्दा यह है कि इस इशू पर जब सोमवार को फिर से बैठेगी पार्लियामेंट, क्या सरकार इस मुद्दे पर डिस्कशन के लिए तैयार है या किसी स्टेटमेंट के लिए तैयार है? क्योंकि इसमें ऑपोजिशन का डिमांड और पॉलिटिक्स एक तरफ, इसमें आम आदमी का भी कंसर्न,
हर विषय में आम आदमी कंसर्न्ड है एंड हर विषय में सरकार पूरे रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी के साथ हर पार्लियामेंट्री इशू को हैंडल करती है. ये नहीं है कि इसमें जनता आम आदमी इन्वॉल्व है मगर नेशनल सिक्योरिटी में आम आदमी इन्वॉल्व नहीं है, इन्फ्लेशन में आम आदमी इन्वॉल्व नहीं है. क्यों? आम आदमी के इन्फ्लेशन अटैक नहीं करता और उसके ऊपर जब हम जवाब दे रहे हैं कोई बैठता नहीं है, वॉकआउट करते हैं. I was ready to answer. I was standing and answering. There was nothing, nobody from the Congress, and all of them walked out. इन्फ्लेशन आम आदमी के लिए नहीं है, मगर जब बाहर बात कर रही हो महंगाई महंगाई, total hypocrisy. Navika, I'm very I feel very let down. India needs a good, responsible opposition. Not sorry to say, my Hindi is weak, but I'll still say something. Dramabaz. Not those who are, going about, I'm प्यार के दुकान.
प्यार की दुकान.
हाँ. I'm establishing प्यार के दुकान, but you go on speaking in such खड़ुआ शब्द, you abuse the Prime Minister, you abuse everybody, and you go on keeping the company of the people who speak such language, and then say मैं प्यार का दुकान. Come on, I want a serious opposition who stands
up. You think
up.
Rahul Gandhi is not serious at all about
Congress party is. I don't want to take individual names. Congress party probably believes that they can do everything outside, but when it comes inside the parliament, they will not be there to hear the answers because they know they will be convinced by the answers we give. They don't want to be convinced. I take the example of inflation, where I stood. I take the example of the economy में क्या हो रही है economy. कोविड के समय से इकोनॉमी के ऊपर न्याय, I mean, fair, you have to hold it, talk about it. जब हम खड़े होते हैं, प्रधानमंत्री जी खड़े होते हैं जवाब देने के लिए, कांग्रेस चल जाता है. उसका मतलब क्या है? प्रश्न तो आपने उठाया, जवाब दे रहे हैं जी. Then how are you going out? So what is the impression you're giving the people of India? आम जनता. You're raising their concerns, is what you're telling me. And there is answer coming from the Prime Minister, coming from the concerned ministers. Raksha Mantri, Home Mantri, Videsh Mantri, मैं सब. बट जवाब देने के समय नहीं, इधर नहीं बैठेंगे, मगर कमरे में बैठ करके टीवी में देख करके बाहर जाकर टिप्पणी, वो भी कठोर शब्द में तीखा टिप्पणी. So what is it? नफरत फैलाने वाले कौन है? भाषा के द्वारा आप नफरत फैला रहे हो, फिर आप ही प्यार की दुकान. Look at the language they've used on the PM. पिछली बार भी 2014 to 19 में भी क्या क्या शब्द उपयोग किए? चोर है, झूठे है, बोला नहीं है. और जब चोर नहीं है, मैं सच्चाई बोल रही हूं, सुनो, करने के समय आप तो नहीं रहते सुनने के लिए. आपकी स्ट्रैटेजी एज ऑपोजिशन पार्टी ही गलत।
पर बीजेपी जब ऑपोजिशन में थी तब भी तो वॉकआउट करती थी और तब भी
जवाब
उन्होंने
सुनने के बाद से वी आर नॉट सेटिस्फाइड विद द रिप्लाई एंड वी वॉक आउट इज अ डिफरेंट थिंग than to say I will throw all allegations at you, ask all the questions, which is right, please do, but you should also be there to hear the reply. No, you want to go away after that. What is that responsibility? How would you read that?
मैं वापस इस मुद्दे पर आती हूं जो मार्केट्स में वॉलेटिलिटी है। इस पर बहुत से लोगों का ये कहना है और उस कंपनी का स्टेटमेंट भी आया है कि दिस इज एन अटैक ऑन इंडिया। आप मानती हैं कि दिस इज एन अटैक ऑन इंडिया? कोई ऐसी ताकतें हैं जो इंडिया की इकोनॉमी को इस तरह से कॉम्प्रोमाइज करना चाहती हैं, हिलाना चाहती हैं, उसमें इस तरह का कंफ्यूजन लाना चाहती हैं? क्योंकि 7-8 दिन हो गए हैं जब से ये चल रहा है, सरकार ने कोई तो व्यू लिया होगा इस पर। Maybe it's an issue of further investigation, but is there a prima facie feeling that there could be some forces that are anti-India?
I want to just convey that as regards investments, as regards fund flow into India, as regards trust in our banking system, as regards joint ventures and the PLI and also China +1 related policies that we have, I don't see any impact because of this incident. Example, the last few days, India has received more than few days, not months, few days. India has received more than 8 billion. Our forex has gone up to that level. Forex reserves have gone up by 8 billion in the last few days. I'm not saying in months we get only 8 billion. Few days we've got 8 billion, and that too in the last few days. The period that
after 24th of January,
when the period that you're referring to, right? So what explains that? Because people do believe in India, people do believe the strength, fundamental strengths of India, that monies are coming in, and therefore I want to answer your question that trust in India, India's markets, India's economy, India's leadership and India's vision for a future and India's role in the global economic revival, there's, if anything, good confidence. And that is why I think people are coming even now talking about their businesses.
So it's not an attack on India. This particular occurrence is not an attack on India.
Otherwise, why would people come investing? So I think the trust in India, trust in India's leadership, trust in India's role for having kept an economy carefully nurtured during the COVID period, and as a result of which we have reached the stage of being the fastest growing economy, are all intact.
So it's just a company problem?
I would think so.
And what about the charges against the government that this is, in inverted commas, a favored company by the government?
The moment they utter that, yesterday talking somewhere else, I did say this. You point a finger at me, which is a wrong allegation with a finger that is pointing wrongly at me. Don't forget you have 3 fingers pointing at you. Which are the governments which have called this party and given land, given ports? Not BJP governments. How come you suddenly forget that? Would they then please now give back and say, no, we made a wrong decision? We have not given anything. Let me be absolutely clear. Any project under Prime Minister Modi goes through the open tender process, global tendering. It's all put on digital platforms. Every day, how many people have applied, what has been the process, how is it being processed, and when is the final bid being opened? All that is there for everybody to see. We don't indulge in favoritism of any kind. And therefore, for those very people, rigorous media like you should ask them this question. But aren't there instances, specific instances? I'm not talking Hawabaji. Every state which has given land, every state which has given ports on invitation, in this case cannot afford to throw an allegation at us, which is anyway baseless. Kiss, I mean again Hindi man, किस मुंह से? टॉश, यस।
केरला में है, छत्तीसगढ़ में है, राजस्थान में है, बंगाल में है, झारखंड में है,
and people shaking hands and all that, recent pictures. So, how hypocritical can you be in saying, "Nay, it's all this government"? Hurray! Can you sleep in the nights? I wish the Indian public called this fraud out.
Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, coming back to the budget, I want to ask you, the reactions almost something that we could have said even before the budget, because they follow a certain pattern. But Mr. Rahul Gandhi says, Mitra Kal ka budget hai, no vision to create jobs, no plan to tackle महंगाई, no intent to stem inequality, 1% richest own 40% of the wealth, 50% poorest pay 64% of GST, 42% youth are unemployed. Mr. Chidambaram, a former finance minister, also says the word inflation and unemployment were not even mentioned in the budget. How would you respond to their criticism?
No, that's exactly what I want to come back on. These figures, they churn out and also keep mapping the words in the budget. Nowadays it's using AI easy, you can always list out the speech and say how many times this word occurred, this word occurred. If after all only those word counts mattered in the budget, I can understand why Garibi, till as long as Congress was there, was never mitaud. They said 50 times, 100 times in a budget about Garibi mitayenge. But till 13-14, what was the halat? Why was India fragile? Why did India's per capita income not go up? Why did you have to come up earlier under Mrs. Indira Gandhi, 20-point program for poverty alleviation? If only your word counts in the budget speech mattered, by now India should be a very prosperous country. Congress went on saying all this in every one of their speeches. So word counts alone don't lead to any kind of poverty alleviation. If that is the job which anybody is doing there in the Congress, I'm sorry, you're wasting your time.
Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, many people have also pointed at your budget as a heartless budget because subsidies have come down. Fertilizer subsidy, food subsidy. More than that, the fact is that the allocations for Manrega have come down. The question they ask is poverty behind us? Is everybody employed that Manrega allocations have been slashed the way they have been? How do you respond to that criticism?
What were the three heads you spoke about? Food, fertilizer, and Manrega. Food. Even under the National Food Security Act, now food is being given for free. The 3 rupee or 1 rupee which per kilo the beneficiary was paying, they no longer need to pay. The transport and logistical expenses which states used to put up for lifting the grains, even the states don't need to pay. 2 lakh crores for this year has been announced for the free food distribution, which has been announced for this whole year. So that's on food. Fertilizer. Imported fertilizer was probably 10 times more than what actually was being paid by the farmer per unit, which is a bori. Did Prime Minister shift the burden to the farmer? Import cost has gone up 10 times more, so to make the farmer pay 10 times more? No. The entire burden, and I'm saying the word burden because that much money goes, but the entire expense on that ground of fertilizer the central government took. Just as for the 80 crore people when free food grains were distributed for 28 months, that entire cost was on the government. So is this one-year extension under the National Food Security Act. Entire cost, states don't have to pay logistics, nor the beneficiary have to pay 3 rupees or 1 rupee per kilo. That entire cost, the government has taken it upon itself. And come to Manrega. It's a demand-driven program. At the budget time, I give you a certain amount, and as the demand goes up, we increase it. This time, also similar programs like PM Awas Yojana, Jal Jeevan Mission, have all received higher allocations, 60%, 66% higher for PM Awas Yojana. Who are going to build the houses? The very same workers who are otherwise going for Manrega. So are these not to be counted? If I spend, I need to spend only through PM Manrega. I'm doing this. 2 other programs simultaneously have received. And if the demand increases on Manrega through the year, we'll still come through the supplementary demand for grants. You think they don't know any of this? They've been in government. They've had finance ministers. They know what is budgeting. You start with one thing in B, budget time, and you do it differently per demand during the supplementary demand. They all know it. And our last 2 years' performance on this score is there for you to see. This is what we've done. So lazy allegation. I'm sorry. Lazy allegation.
Unemployment is at the highest level in recent times that we've seen.
Coming down. As much as inflation, it's also coming down. But the point remains, unlike the Western economies, in India, because of the nature of employment also, what you get as data is that small number which is in the formal sector. There are no credible data collection on the informal. And there should be. And I would be on the side of getting proper, timely data.
And growth numbers, do you think India will achieve the prediction that has been?
Yes. I've been very realistic. In all my budget, one thing I've been personally committed is to keep numbers realistic, keep numbers transparent. There's no putting somewhere under the carpet business in the budgets that I've presented, and also making sure that we are realistic in our estimates.
And your message to the opposition?
They should spend some time to understand what we are speaking about, read all the papers that we are issuing, and after that also make sure that you come to the parliament and question us, seek answers and get the answers, hear the answers out. I want the opposition to be robust, constructive opposition.
On that note, thank you very much, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman.
Thank you.
Many thanks to you for once again breaking down the budget for us and speaking to me absolutely frankly.
Thank you very much, Navika, for giving me this opportunity.